city park was still waking up when it happened. Morning lights spilled over the tall oaks, buses rumbled in the distance, and the faint hum of a helicopter drifted above the skyline. People were stretching, jogging, sipping coffee, nobody expecting what was about to unfold. But for Mark Ellison, a single dad and night shift janitor at the Naval Hospital, this morning wasn't peaceful. His 10-year-old daughter, Lily, had forgotten her backpack again, and Mark had sprinted across the park to meet her school bus. He was out of breath, jacket half-zipped, coffee spilling, but he didn't care. Lily was all he had, and he would race across the world if she needed him to. What he didn't know was that a life he had never met was about to need him too. Just as Lily's yellow school bus pulled up, a black SUV rolled into the park's drop-off zone. The door opened sharply, and a woman stepped out, steady but pale. Her uniform caught the sunlight. Crisp white, gold stripes, the unmistakable insignia of a high-ranking Navy officer. But what struck Mark wasn't her uniform. It was her hand clutching her chest and the fear trembling in her voice as she whispered to the driver, "Please, just make it fast." The driver panicked. People froze. No one moved, except Mark. He didn't think, he reacted. He reached her side just as her knees buckled. "Ma'am, hey, I've got you," he said, gripping her lightly, careful not to frighten her. The officer tried to straighten up, her breathing tight and uneven. "I'm fine. I just need to, please make it fast. I can't." Her face tightened in pain. Mark lifted her gently under the arm, his voice soft. "You're safe. I'm right here. We're gonna get you help. Okay? Just breathe with me." Her eyes darted around the crowd. People stared, murmuring, unsure. Cars honked impatiently. But Mark didn't see any of them. He saw only a terrified human being who needed someone. Not a rank, not a title, not an admiral, just someone. "What's your name?" Mark asked. She swallowed hard. "Admiral Elena Brooks." Her voice cracked. "Please, don't let me fall." "I won't," Mark promised. "Lean on me." There were no ambulances nearby, no hospital shuttles. But Mark knew a shortcut, an old maintenance route that led to the Naval Hospital loading dock. If they waited for an ambulance, precious minutes would slip by. He turned to Lily, who was watching with wide, scared eyes from her bus window. "Go on to school, sweetheart," he called gently. "I'll be okay. I promise." Lily nodded bravely as the bus pulled away. Mark took off his jacket, folded it, and placed it behind Admiral Brooks's back to support her as he eased her into the back seat of her SUV. The driver was frantic. "She said she didn't want a scene, sir. I don't know." "Drive to the hospital," Mark said calmly. "I'll stay with her." Admiral Brooks gripped his hand, breath trembling. "I'm not afraid of pain, but I'm afraid of being alone." Mark held her hand a little tighter. "You're not alone. I've got you." The SUV sped off. The city blurred by, coffee shops, morning traffic, cyclists weaving through downtown. Through the window, a helicopter swooped low, its blades chopping the air. A reminder of the world Admiral Brooks came from, a world of bravery and sacrifice. Mark kept talking to her in quiet, steady words, words he used when Lily woke from nightmares, words that made people feel safe. "You're strong," he told her. "Just hold on. Focus on my voice." Her breathing slowed, not perfect but steadier. When they reached the hospital loading bay, Mark lifted her carefully, guiding her through the back corridor he knew better than anyone. The sterile lights flickered above them, echoing their hurried footsteps. Doctors recognized her immediately, shock flashing in their eyes. "Admiral Brooks, what happened?" She squeezed Mark's hand one last time before they pulled her away. "He helped me. He didn't even know who I was. But he helped." And as she disappeared behind the swinging emergency doors, Mark realized something. He hadn't just stumbled into a moment. He had been placed there, right when she needed him most. Hours passed. Mark waited in the hospital corridor, sitting in a plastic chair still smelling faintly of bleach from his night shift. He should have been home sleeping. Instead, he couldn't bring himself to leave. His mind raced, not with fear for himself, but with a simple human worry. Was she okay? Eventually, a doctor approached. You were with her? She asked for you. Mark blinked. For me? The doctor nodded. She doesn't want to talk to anyone else yet. They walked through soft-lit hallways until they reached a quiet recovery room. The blinds were half open, revealing a small view of the city, the skyline rising behind the park where everything had happened. Inside the room, Admiral Elena Brooks sat upright in bed, pale but stable. Her uniform jacket hung neatly on a chair. Her medals rested untouched on a table. She looked a human, tired, vulnerable, but still strong in a way Mark couldn't describe. She looked up when he entered, her expression softening. You stayed. Mark rubbed the back of his neck awkwardly. Yeah. I just wanted to make sure you were okay. She smiled faintly. Most people would have stepped back. You stepped forward. Anybody would have helped. She shook her head. No, not anybody. For a moment there was quiet. Not awkward, just gentle, like both of them needed a second to breathe. You saved me, she said finally. But you didn't even ask why I was alone in a park at sunrise. Mark sat at the edge of her bed. I figured you'd tell me if you wanted to. She took a deep breath. I wasn't avoiding security. I wasn't running from anything. I was afraid. Mark frowned. Afraid? You're an admiral. SEAL command. It wasn't disrespect, just surprise. Her eyes lowered. I've led missions across oceans, stood on decks during storms, made decisions that affected thousands of lives. But last night, I got news about a heart condition I didn't know I had. She pressed a hand lightly to her chest. I woke up with this pressure here, and I panicked. Her voice cracked slightly. I didn't want anyone to see me weak. Not my officers, not my team. So I told my driver to take me somewhere quiet. But the pain got worse. Mark listened with a quiet, steady presence. Sometimes it wasn't the words that mattered. Sometimes it was simply being there. I wasn't afraid of dying, she continued softly. I was afraid of dying alone. Mark swallowed. You weren't alone. Not for 1 second. A soft knock came at the door, and a young nurse poked her head in. Sorry to interrupt. There's someone here to see you. But it wasn't another officer or doctor. It was Lily, Mark's daughter, holding a paper cup of hot chocolate. Mark stood in surprise. Sweetheart? What are you doing here? I asked Mrs. Turner to drop me off after school, Lily said. I wanted to check if the lady was okay. Admiral Brooks's eyes softened instantly. Lily walked to her with the open honesty kids have. My dad told me what happened. I'm glad you're okay. Elena blinked fast, touched in a way medicine couldn't treat. Thank you, Lily. That means more than you know. They talked for a while, the room filling with something warm, something human. Stories, smiles, a sense of connection none of them expected. When the nurse stepped out again, Admiral Brooks looked at Mark. You don't know it yet, but what you did today changed more than my life. Mark raised an eyebrow. I really just helped you into a car and held your hand. That's exactly why, she whispered. You didn't see an admiral. You didn't see the rank. You saw a person. Then she reached for his hand again, not in fear this time, but in gratitude. Mark, please don't disappear after today. And for the first time in years, Mark felt something stirring in his chest. Hope, possibility of connection, a beginning, something fragile, but real. The next week, Admiral Brooks invited Mark and Lily to the Naval Garden, an open, peaceful place behind the base where cherry blossoms bloomed in spring. Birds hopped between branches, and the gentle sound of a distant helicopter blended with the breeze. Mark felt awkward walking next to someone with her rank, but she walked like any other person. Hands folded, pace gentle, eyes bright with gratitude. You know, she said softly, in my world, people salute me before they speak. They follow orders. They keep distance. But you were different. Mark laughed under his breath. I didn't know I was supposed to salute. That's why it mattered. She smiled. You treated me like a human, not a headline. Lily ran ahead along the path, chasing a squirrel, her laughter echoing across the flowers. Elena watched her with admiration. She's a brave kid. Mark nodded proudly. She gets that from her mom. There was silence, gentle, respectful. Elena didn't pry. Mark didn't offer. But they understood each other's unspoken stories. They sat on a bench overlooking the city skyline. Below them, buses hummed along avenues, joggers crossed bridges, and people moved through their day unaware that something incredibly human and fragile was unfolding on this quiet hill. Mark, Elena said, can I tell you something strange? Sure. When you held my hand in that SUV, I wasn't thinking about rank or protocol. I was thinking, I hope this man doesn't let go. Mark felt heat rise in his face. He wasn't used to someone seeing him. Not beyond his job or his tired eyes, or the weight he carried alone. Most people don't look at me like a person, she continued. They look at me as a uniform. You were a kindness I didn't know I needed. Mark swallowed. I just did what anyone should do. No, she said softly. You did what a good man does. A gentle honesty settled between them. Not romance, not obligation, just connection, rooted in a moment of fear, lifted by an act of kindness. They spent the afternoon walking through the garden, talking about simple things, favorite foods, childhood memories, their dreams for the future. When the sun dipped low, painting the sky in soft gold, Elena turned to him. Mark, you saved my life. But more than that, you reminded me that even leaders, even warriors, need someone to lean on. She placed a hand on his arm. And if you're willing, I don't want this to be the last time we see each other. Mark looked at her. Not the admiral, but the woman. Warm, strong, human. I'd like that, he said. Lily tugged on his sleeve. Can we come back again? With the hot chocolate this time. Elena smiled. It's a promise. And just like that, something new took shape. Not a dramatic twist. Not a miracle. Just kindness. Shared between three hearts who needed it. One moment that changed everything. A week later, Admiral Brooks sent Mark a simple message. Thank you for seeing me. And Mark realized something. Sometimes the greatest acts of courage aren't on battlefields. Sometimes they happen in a quiet city park at sunrise, when one frightened soul whispers, please, just make it fast. And a stranger answers, you're safe. I'm right here. Kindness doesn't need uniforms. It doesn't need medals. It only needs a heart willing to step forward. Dear viewers, if this heartfelt story touched you, warmed your heart, or reminded you that kindness still exists in our world, please take a moment to like this video, share it with your friends, and leave a meaningful comment below about your thoughts or similar acts of kindness you've seen in life. Your support helps us spread more powerful, true-to-life stories of compassion, humanity, and hope. And please, don't forget to subscribe to our channel, Kindness Quest, for more inspiring stories that lift the spirit and remind us that one small act can change someone's whole world. Thank you for being here. Thank you for believing in kindness. And thank you for joining the journey.